Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Aces53. Ed, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's funny because you're normally like talk normal, and then when you come on here, like, hey, how's it going? I'm a little nervous. What do I say? Am I
What do I
scripted? Where's my
do?
scripts?
Where are my banners? Don't worry, we have banners.
Don't worry, Brian always has banners.
We
No, but
do.
we've been talking about scripts for so long,
Mhm.
and every. It's funny how everybody came on my side where you need scripts
Right.
versus other people who have said you don't need scripts; those are stupid.
You can
Right?
just wing it. Yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't work out so well.
wings are only good for watching football.
There you go.
Yeah. No, but the purpose of knowing what you're going to say, practicing it, doing
Mhm.
everything, you want to get to a point where you don't need the script and it is a guide for you because you practice it so much. You put everything in and it works really well for you. But it was nice last Thursday. I'm sorry, I can't think of her name. I want to say Wendy.
Mary
Mary.
Hamilton from Mad Data IO.
What was nice about what she said is how do you duplicate yourself? How do you grow a company if you don't have those scripts for your people to take over for what you say? Because usually the person who starts the company, he has a way or she has a way of speaking and doing things, and that's what's got them successful.
Right.
And that you need to have people mirror that, and mirroring and everything else we're going to be talking about. That's, I guess, what NLP is, from what I understand. Because, like I
Yes.
said before, I know about it, heard about it, I read a little bit about it, but I don't know that I really practice it. But maybe I do.
It's taught by so many different people. The funny thing about it, so for people who don't know what is neuro-linguistic programming, I get to use my first banner.
Ooh.
It was developed in the 70s by Bandler and Grinder. So what's interesting is they came from two completely different sides of the world, right? So Bandler came from mathematics and psychology, and then Grinder was a linguist. But what they did is they studied therapists and they looked at what different techniques all these therapists were using to be successful with their patients. And then they figured out, can we repeat those patterns? And so they coined it into, most people know it as NLP, and that's natural or neuro-linguistic programming. If you go into, like, we were playing around, of course,
Google it.
in Chat GPT, and if you put in NLP, it brings up how do computers talk and learn, and that's natural language processing. But if you go into NLP, it's been around for quite a while. A lot of people that you would know are kind of associated with it. So Tony Robbins, it's not exact NLP, but are there things borrowed from it? Yes, there are. And so, like you were talking about, you don't know that you've ever done it, but then again, you have done it. It's because people have borrowed from it over time.
Right.
And
I want to go back. Can we go back a little bit?
sure,
Just
go for it.
back the car up a little bit. So so it was created by therapists, right? And psychologists. What's
Right.
weird about that is some of the best salespeople have taken those courses. Right. I'm not
100%
talking NLP. I'm talking psychology and
psychology.
how the
Mhm.
brain works, how people think, all those kind of things. And you understand how people think and how they do and why they do and everything else. And that's important. And now we've taken therapists who have created this language to talk to their clients that we can now use to talk to our clients.
100%. If you look at what they called a linguist back in the 70s, would that be almost like a copywriter today? Because it's figuring out how do we use words the right way to accomplish a task or a goal. And to your point, what's interesting is they came from different backgrounds, but what did they study? What are the patterns? Language, behavior. And they just started putting them together and figured out what are repeatable processes. Ironically, what's a
That sounds
script?
like Chat GPT, actually,
Yeah.
repeatable processes.
Exactly. But it's like writing a script. What was something that somebody could do that upon being replicated, you could achieve the same result? And so, ironically, since we are still talking about scripts, but this is more, how do you alter a script? How do you use it? Once you have the language down, what do you modify and change, right? But that's what they did, is they followed the therapist around and figure out what works and what doesn't. And so, leading off with when we talked to Mary last week, it was, she had somebody who came in and said, this script sucks, right? Let me help you rewrite it. And that's what you really have to figure out, is you have to know who your target audience is. Then you can start figuring out some of the techniques like in NLP. And so what we're going to talk about today is, everybody's fairly familiar with what I'm going to pop up, which is mirroring and matching. We've
All right.
heard about it.
Let's back the car up a little bit
Yeah.
here, sir. All right. So the whole purpose of this presentation that we're doing on NLP is because Brian was at an event last week and someone told him NLP is dead.
Right.
Only Elvis is dead.
Yeah.
But anyway, I know for a fact he's gone.
He
told me last week.
The aliens, you never know.
He told me last week. He told me last week he was gone.
Yeah. You're right. So I was working an event last week and Wednesday, and a guy came up and we were talking about facial features and how you can learn to speak someone's language. And specifically, we're talking about, oh, look, I get to use a banner. Some people are auditory, some people are kinesthetic, and some people are visual.
You just did that a complete opposite. It was an auditory, visual, and because I thought for sure you're going to go right through the way it was, and you threw me off when you jumped ahead and came back.
I know. Just because I like my banners doesn't mean I always read them, But it is interesting. So some people learn by watching, some people learn by hands-on, and some people by listening. So you can always tell people who learn by podcasts, people who learn by reading a book, or people who have to perform the task itself. And we were talking at that event about make sure you pepper in all those types of phrases into content. It went in sales. And that's when the gentleman said, oh, NLP's dead. It's been disproven. It's not around. And I disagreed politely with the guy because people use all kinds of things that come from NLP. So a big one that people don't think about is anchoring. And that is a lot of athletes or a person has a routine or a lucky charm of something, and that's called an anchor. So when they find a behavior that they like or they want to instill, they can attach it to an action, a keyword, or a phrase, or they can have it to a physical item, a totem of some type. And so if anybody's ever watched Ted Lasso, the very first season, what happened is he put up that big sign that says believe in the show. And that was all of a sudden the thing that inspired everyone. And then of course people touch the sign, and that's pretty common in a lot of sports where on their way out to the court they touch something to go out can kind of get them into the zone. But there's so many ways that athletes do this, their lucky jersey, you name it. But that was set in NLP. So it's how do you set or recreate an anchor so that you have a routine that you get into every single time, which is like a script. So what is something you can carry with you? What's a phrase? I think it's Tony Robbins. He calls it like striking or making a move. So he makes his move before he goes out on stage. That's his anchor that says who I am walking up to that point and who I need to be when I walk on stage. I'm now in that mental zone that I need to be in.
Right. And this is just like what Zig Ziglar used to say back in the day, check up from the neck up,
Right.
Before you walk in, you're at home, you have all this stuff that has stresses and this and that. You're going to work. Before you walk in the door of where you work, you need to change everything and turn it on. I call it turn it on, where you change, you forget all that and you turn on who you're supposed to be, whether that's an act, whatever it is, that's what you need to do. Especially when you're going to sit down or stand up to make phone calls. Best way to do is make phone calls is standing up because you have all that energy. That's why I stand now instead of sitting like you do.
Right. Just kidding. That's why you can tell because I'm always shifting because I'm standing and I'm thinking. Two stories. One is a parable that a lot of people have heard. And that is there was a guy that every day when he would leave for work, he would touch a tree on the way out. And when he would come home from work, he would touch a tree. And so one day his kids finally asked him, why do you do that? And because he said, well, when I come home, I want to leave all the stresses from work on that tree and not bring him home into the family. And so that's why he would touch it on the way there and on the way out. When work from home became possible and, you started having before Zoom and everything else, but you could do remote telework. When that happened, I had a coworker who could not focus on working. So what he did is he would get dressed up. He would walk out his back door, go through the side gate and come in through his front door. And that was going to work. Or maybe I have it in reverse. He walked out his front door and came in the back door. But that's how he mentally said, I am going to work. So people use techniques from NLP. Is it all 100%? No, but most things aren't.
And it's about using what helps you, what works for you. In the military, there's challenge coins that you get for, and this is newer. And I have a few of those that I normally used to keep one in my pocket all the time. I mean, all the time. I'd put my hand in there. You could have people used it for two different reasons. One was to, all right, I feel, okay, now I know what I'm going to do. The other one was a gratitude, right? A lot of people put them in their pocket to remember what they're doing it for, right? To move forward.
If anybody's ever watched The Secret, in The Secret, they talk about the gratitude walk, and it was just a gratitude rock, not walk.
I was going to say, God, that would be a long thing to do. That's for years I had things.
Yeah. It's a few steps.
Right. For me, at years, I had many things in my pocket what reason that you would touch, whatever it was.
Yes. Well, think about people carried around the lucky rabbit's foot, all kinds of things like that. But if you've ever watched The Secret, the guy just found a nice rock and he called it his gratitude walk, or gratitude rock.
I thought maybe you said walk. I was like W-O-K. I was like, okay, you're going to cook in there.
He had his lucky cooking skillet. No, a rock, a physical rock, pet rock. I'm gonna screw this up again. But yes, in the movie they had that, and that is an anchor or a totem or something like that. But to your point, it's like picking up any book. Learn a subject. Are there things you can take away from it? Then that's all that matters. It doesn't have to be 100% true. Body language isn't 100% true. Reading faces isn't 100% true, but what can you take away from a skill that will benefit you in some form or fashion? And so I'm a huge fan of NLP because it helped me. When I mentioned earlier, growing up as an introvert, I learned to study people, to understand people, right? How to have interactions, because it didn't come naturally to me. So by learning body language, learning NLP, how to add in different phrases, it just helped me as a person. And so I'm a huge fan of it.
All right. Well, there we go. All right. Have a great day, everybody.
Exactly.
Well, no, because I remember doing one of my podcasts, and we were talking I was talking to the guy, and he was kind of brought up NLP, and I was telling about how you do your face. And he's like, man, you add that to NLP, you can just really destroy it. But I think you have to be careful, because a lot of people think with NLP that you're going to manipulate people, right? It's unscrupulous practitioners oh my God, do you have this on your banner? For manipulation or unethical purposes. You can, in sales, you can manipulate people if you want to.
Yes.
You can, but why you shouldn't?
Yes.
Right. Not everybody can do it. I remember back in the day, years and years ago, I could get people to take certain loans by just talking to them. And was it the best loan for them? That's not my decision. That's their decision.
Right. There are some people who it's the thrill of the hunt. Oh, look at how many deals I closed. But at the end of the day, you have to like who you see in the mirror. And money is important. Don't get me wrong. But it's not the only thing.
I got rid of my mirrors years ago for that reason.
I got you. So, it must be hard to put on your lipstick when you don't have mirrors, Ed. So
I don't know. How is it? You should try it. Let me know.
But you're right. Anything can be manipulation, but do you want to really be that person? You still have to live with yourself at the end of the day. So these are more, I think you said it really well. What is persuasion versus manipulation versus influence? If you're trying to truly help someone get something that will benefit them, that's influence or persuasion. Manipulation is purposely getting someone to purchase or do something that's not in their benefit, but it's solely in yours.
Right. Yeah. And I always say persuasion is helping somebody get what they really want.
Yes.
Anyway, you're just helping them get it. That's what they come to you. They want it. You're here to help them. And that's what you're there for. That's persuasion. Not manipulation is getting them to buy something they really don't want, but you convince them to do it.
And that's just it. Some people, it's all about the numbers, the thrill of the hunt. I closed X many deals. Some people are wired that way, and that's fine. It takes everybody for the world to go around. Not one that I want to be a part of. And they always say, what's the best thing anybody selling a product can do? And that is be a believer in the product, because if you don't believe in the product, you need to find a new product to sell. And I'm a perfect example of that. I lost faith in a product that I used to represent, and the days became longer at that time.
And I totally represent what I sell. But yeah, you're totally, it's so important to make sure that because I'm back to the manipulating people to buy things. You know what, the prime example, encyclopedias, right? Back in the day, years and years ago, there was these things called encyclopedias, and they were actual books where it supposedly had all the knowledge in it, and you would give it to a family and say, you need this for your kids so they can steal this stuff out of there and make the reports out of it. But now then they became CDs, and then they came on internet, and then you have Google. You don't need them anymore. But back in the day, you never needed it, but they were willing, they could manipulate you into buying it by saying certain things. So you would feel like you should
if you don't buy it.
How are your kids going to learn if they can't get this information?
That's right. Back to you talking about you believe in your product so much. I'm putting this up there, not you, but that's why you wrote a book, right? Is just to help people, because you know what industry you're in, you know what people need, and you know there's a lot of ignorance out there. And rather than just saying you have to come to me, you can only use me, you're willing to put the knowledge out there because you believe in it. If they happen to use you, it's a bonus, right? But that's what the book was designed for.
There's only one of me. You can't scale me.
Right.
But the book can help a lot of people understand the knowledge that I've had and what you can do. And it's not a perfect book. It's a great book. A lot of people, have come to me and said, hey, because of this, I now know I can buy, or know what the process is over the next. Even the person that would cut, during the book writing, who edited it, was like, thank you so much for the book, because I now know what I can do in the next year to buy. I just wish I lived next to you so you could do the loan.
Right.
And so it's not about that. I was telling somebody else, because I dropped off a ton of books last week to different real estate offices. And they're like, well, I go, it's about the knowledge out there. I don't care. Yes, I'd love you to use me, but that's not what it's about.
Right. It's about the greater good.
Mm-hmm. It's the Spock effect.
Yes.
Yeah. Of the many, not the one. Of the many, not the one.
So back to what you're talking about. What is it that's kind of funny? So some people believe that it's not, that it's because it's harmful, because it's not 100%, it's not scientific. And that's where people just over exaggerate things. Like, if you have good intent, you're doing things the right way for the right reason, then learn to study anything. I don't care if it's NLP, body language, decoding faces, statement analysis. I mean, we could keep going down the path of every single thing that's out there. Copywriting. What is copywriting about? Good communication skills to try and instill in someone else the desire to buy a product that you believe in. It's all those things are out there, but it is funny how dismissive people are. But yet you mentioned you've never really studied NLP formally, but yet you've used techniques, because other Zig Ziglar mentions it. A lot of the people who are just trying to help people improve their lives use all these skills.
Right. I mean, I've listened to every guru on the planet when it comes to sales, and most of them are saying the same thing that somebody else said anyway. They're just reiterating what somebody else, because no one created the new. I mean, this NLP was created in the 70s, but I guarantee in the 50s that someone else used it and did something else, and they knew how to do it. Right.
Well, what's interesting about this particular study is, again, they studied therapists, and I went through marriage counseling when I was married, and we went through a MIGO therapy. And a MIGO therapy is where I say a statement and she would repeat it back to me as close as can be. It didn't have to be 100%, but was it trying to do to let the first person know the second person heard them, so much so they can repeat back the gist of it. It didn't have to be word for word verbatim. What is that doing? Building rapport, active listening skills. That's the same thing here. And that's what is so just mind-boggling about the guy saying, oh, NLP doesn't exist and it was disproven and it's not beneficial. I know firsthand it's beneficial, and you can read about it and not have to pay a therapist to go do it. So,
but back to what you're saying about what you just said, that's what you do to clients. When clients say something to you and you say, all right, so this is what I heard you say, that you want the blah, 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 blah. And that way they know they were heard. They know you're listening, and they know, and then you actually heard what they said, and you can move forward at that point. Because so many people hear what they want to hear, and that's not what they said.
In a former life, we had a client call and say, that's it, we're kicking you guys out. You're not doing this, you're not doing that. Spending time on the phone with them and repeating back what their concerns were kind of de-escalated that. But then to go a step further, I typed up all of our conversation, because as we're talking, I said, hey, I'm not ignoring you. If we were on a Zoom, I said, I'm taking notes. Then I sent the email to them and said, this is what I heard you say. Is this right? And by the time that I got the email back and we had another phone conversation, it wasn't from we're kicking you out of here to, okay, how can we help work through this? Because you made them feel seen and heard. And there's too many times that people they do the head nod and, oh, yeah, I heard you, but they're not taking notes. They're not really listening and trying to help the customer.
Correct. All right. So far, what I've heard you say today is it helps improve communication, right? It helps us understand how people communicate and how we communicate.
Right.
Because, you got to, you got to change who you are, because maybe people don't like who you are.
Right.
I'm told all the time, and I tell people, you either love me or hate me. There's no in between. And that's just who I am. So you either like to work with me or you don't want to work with me, because I'm very direct to where this is what we need to do. This is what we need to move forward. I'm not one of those people who go, hey, how's it going today? And that's my staff's always like, we did all those disc testing and it's like, okay, they want you to say, how's your day going? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I can't do that. And I'll catch myself. I'll go, oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. How's your day? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now can we get my stuff? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Hold on. Before I want to just reiterate a couple things so people understand where we are. And then the personal development part of it to help you personally grow and self-improvement. So changing your behavior patterns. And so you can also use it to increase your own motivation to do with this.
Yes. A very simple non-sales book that's an example of this is The 5 Love Languages, right? That entire book is about there's 5 basic love languages. And if you're in a relationship with someone, the way that you receive it may be different.
Notes.
Yeah, from how you give it and vice versa. So the way you feel love and you try and give that same thing to somebody, that may not be how they do it. So that's time and attention, physical touch, words of affirmation, gift giving, and acts of service. And they can be different for the two people. Well, if you can learn to figure out what the other person is, then you can meet their needs while explaining to them what your needs are. And then you're both happy campers. And you wouldn't go, oh, well, that's manipulation. No, it's just trying to figure out the needs on both sides of the table and how do you meet in the middle. And that's really what a lot of NLP is. And then to add to what you just said, but plus one more, is a lot of this you can apply to yourself. So we talked about the anchoring, getting into state. Athletes do that all the time. When they come out, like Bo Jackson spoke in third person, right? It wasn't, hey, I'm going to go out in the field. Well, when Bo Jackson takes the field, and that's what you'll find with a lot of very successful artists, athletes, you name it, is they talk about themselves in a third party because they have that successful identity that is external from who they are as a person. So when it's time to perform, they use that name. And then when they walk off the field or off the stage or whatever, they go back to who they are.
It's like Jimmy's out of here.
Exactly.
Where's that from?
I've heard it, but
Seinfeld,
dude.
Yeah, it's like Jimmy. He'd say, he's talked in third person on that episode, and that's how I remember that. But back to what you're saying is because they say you should treat people the way that you want to be treated, right? No, you need to treat people the way they want to be treated, not the way you want to be treated, but the way they want to be treated. Because we all have our own understandings of how we want to be treated, but each one of and I think that helps a lot of people. If you look at things, treat that person the way they want to be treated.
Yes. And pay attention to it. Now, of course, it does have limits because some people want to be treated in some weird ways these days. Yeah. But the original intent behind it was,
I'm talking in sales, okay?
Right. In sales is
with clothes on.
Bare minimum, treat them as if you want to be treated, but then go that extra step and say, this is my level of expectation for me. How do I earn that much more by helping take care of you? Right.
Okay.
So
I still like mine better.
Yeah. Well, we'll let the audience decide when they go where. When they go to our YouTube channel, Aces53, and make a comment or like or subscribe.
Well, definitely subscribe because we need to grow it because we do lives and we haven't been putting a lot of these cut up videos on there, which we're going to be working on.
Yes. So. Speaking of which, that reminds me, Eric Allen posted about a software we'll have to take a look at.
Okay.
But with that being said, we wanted to keep today fairly short, right? So was there any other part you wanted to cover on NLP?
Well, first of all, it doesn't cost anything.
Right.
Right. So you should be using it. And what I mean
Correct.
by that is so you can understand your client. You brought up a point where you should know this stuff because I love when I come into a place and I know a salesperson's using a freaking closing on me, or they're starting to do this other stuff. Cause I'll just say to them, that was really good, but it didn't work. And it's like, you have, if you're going to do and we'll get into closing later, but I'm just saying, if you're going to use this stuff on somebody, understand what.
No, I'm going to bring one up. I'm going to yes and you.
Okay. Well, it's just understand that you need to understand this stuff for yourself, so you understand what is being done to you, and also so you can just talk to people and help them get what they want. And that's the whole persuasion that I'm talking about. Persuasion is great. It helps people. The people only buy for two reasons: pleasure or pain. Most of the time, it's 99% of the time is the pain. So you want to help them get it before they're in that pain. And that's what you can do with persuasion. Go ahead there, Brian.
Got a perfect example of what we've been talking about in these last few weeks of somebody who sent a cold DM and says, "Hey, Brian, this is blah, blah, blah with here. I saw you in this Facebook group and I was wondering how your coaching business is going." And I said, "I don't do coaching. I do this." And he came back and he said, "Oh, hi, Brian. I see in your bio that you're a trainer. What do you train people on?" I'm like, "Well, if you went to my bio, then why are you asking me what I train on?"
Because that's an AI doing it. It's a bot doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where you have to know, if you're not cold calling, now there is the dialing for dollars, but if you have the ability to do some research, some type of proactive part in here, you need to do that. That's number one. Number two, when you were talking, our guest last Thursday was Mary from maddata.io, and she starts her calls off by immediately saying, "Hey, this is a sales call," and that's called a pattern interrupt. That is an NLP technique, because everybody gets so used to something that when you do it out of order, people are thrown off. And so by Mary saying at the very beginning, "This is a sales call," people go, "What?" Oh, because if not, we're sitting in anticipation the entire time, wondering, when are they going to pitch me? Yeah. When are they going to do it? So her doing that, whether or not she knows it's NLP, is just one of those things of a pattern or interrupt is what has made her sales calls successful.
Well, I do the same thing when I call at somebody's office and I say who I am first, because they're used to someone asking for someone, and then they go, "And who are you? Why do you want to talk to them?" Right? I'm a gatekeeper. You're not getting through me. But when you throw yourself in there first, they go, "Okay, he must have called here before. He must have been somebody," and you get through a lot of the time. Now everybody's going to do it, and then it's not going to work anymore. But again, it's that pattern interrupt. You want to interrupt people's patterns, what they're used to. Yes. So that it throws them off a little bit, and then they listen. Because you'll tune you out the moment they hear something.
Well, our human brain is meant to categorize things. So as soon as we see anything that we assume is like something else, we automatically put it in that category, and it doesn't stand out. It's not different. People do it, if they want to get your attention, what do? They dress differently. They have a mohawk. They want to be seen as different from everybody else. That's a subconscious thing, because what does our brain do? We categorize things that are easy for us to just say, okay, that goes in that bucket, and not have to put any processing power towards. So when you do those pattern interrupts, or you do something out of order, people go, "What?" And they actually have to pay attention. And a good example of that is if you ever go overseas and you have to drive on the other side of the road, you can have been driving for 50 years. All of a sudden you're on the wrong side of the car, on the wrong side of the road. You better pay a hell of a lot more attention. And you have to cognitively think about how you're driving, versus most people are on autopilot. They can't tell you from the time they left their house till they showed up to work how many cars they passed, what they saw. We just go into that autopilot mode, right?
Right. So, but there's one thing that you can remember. All right. So if you're ever driving and you see a car with one headlight, guarantee you're going to see another one before you get home.
Because you're paying attention to it.
Well, now that I said that, you're going to see it, and then you're going to go, "Fuck, it's right."
Oh yeah.
Because a friend of mine's dad said that when I was a kid, much younger, and I was like, "No," and then you look for it, you're like, "Fuck, there it is," because it makes you look for it. Yeah.
Right. Sam Taggart just did a story about that, which is he just bought a new car, and all of a sudden he sees all the ones that were around him, and so that's the part of they call it the RES, or the reticular activating system in your brain. Right. That once you're taught to look for something, you find it fairly often. So,
Right. That's every time you buy a car, then all of a sudden they're everywhere. Something you want, all of a
exactly.
sudden is everywhere. That's it. But it's always been there. We
Yes.
just block it out because we don't want that. There's so much noise out there. We block all that out until we want to see that.
Right. And of course, my favorite one to give the example of is if you're in a room, hundreds of people, you hear somebody say your name, and all of a sudden you pay attention. You're not paying attention to all the other conversations going on around you, but you hear your name and your brain goes, oh shit, this is important. So.
Well, I always use people's names because it's the best thing. The best sound anybody can hear is their name.
Absolutely.
Just don't oversay it too much.
I was going to say the people who do it over in every sentence, you're like, I know what you're doing, dude. I got it.
Just do it a couple times, but
right.
But for me, like I'll be in a restaurant, I'll hear something about a mortgage or something about it, and I can hear it no matter where it is. And my wife's like, "You're listening to that conversation, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, they said the word, so I wanted to hear what they're saying."
Exactly. So.
All right, take us out.
Go for it.
All right, I want to thank everybody for watching today. Thank you for being here, Brian. Thank you for being here, Ed. Oh, my pleasure.
Yes.
And the best thing you can do for us is to support us. Go to our Facebook page. Let us know your comment. And then the other thing you can do is go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, let us know you're here. We're just starting to grow that channel. We've been doing this on our own YouTube channels and now have put it over there, and we're growing this. And eventually we're going to have a group for you to join, and we'd like you to be there. And I know Brian said he doesn't coach, but part of this whole program is to get people to understand that's what we really do.
Right.
Anyway, anything else, Brian?
No, good to go.
All right. Thanks for being here, and everybody make it a great day.
Sorry. Don't forget, come back on Thursday because we already have our Joker lined up, right?
That's right. We're here on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, and that would be 12 p.m.
Central,
Brian's
the most
time.
important time. Middle of America, Ed.
No, actually, no. That's it. Middle America is in between Mountain and Central.
We go with the Central anyway.
It's in the middle there, which is right where they touch. Anyway, make it a great day.